Good evening, welcome to the program. I am Omini Udan. Tonight on NTA Studio Live, we shall take a look at NSAS protest. For more than 2 weeks now, it has been going on across different parts of the country, which many feared has been hijacked and increasingly becoming violent. So many stories on the social media across board. Government has taken steps and appeals are coming from all over the country across the divide for the protesters to sheath their swords. As much as we have people who are also pro-SARS and anti-SARS, that will be the focus of the program tonight. And just before then, we take this background report put together by Abubakar Usman Akwanga.
Nationwide movement which is tagged NSAS protest began by a few youth in Asaba Delta State following the alleged killing of a young man by unit of the disbanded Special Anti-Robbery Squad and ordered several police brutality carried out by unit of the force. After about 2 weeks of peaceful demonstration, happenings in the last 24 hours indicate that the protest may have been hijacked by hoodlums, leading to destruction of lives and property in some parts of the country and subsequent declaration of curfew in Lagos State to manage the crisis. Reports from Lagos and other states show that police commands and outposts, including vehicles, were attacked, while officers and men of the force have continued to live in apprehension following threats on their lives. In Abuja, Najatu Tijani and Rosemary Bilal report that calmness has returned after alleged hoodlums took advantage of the peaceful protest to maim people and destroy valuables worth millions of naira. From Abakaleke, Ebonyi State, Kingsley Okoro reports that Governor David Umahi assures protesters of consideration of their demands and adequate compensation for victims of brutality.
Demanded for judicial panel of inquiry. We will set it up tomorrow.
Similarly, from Port Harcourt, Rivers State, Kingsley Almaji reports that group of youths has embarked on a peaceful campaign seeking an end to the series of NSAS protests and aligning itself with federal government proposed reforms aimed at repositioning operations of the force.
Our 5 demands have been given speedy attention. It is therefore important to plead with the youths that we give the government some time to further expand on their actions.
Other reports across the country indicate that the protest is relatively peaceful, with less tension in areas where the protest was carried out. Benue and Nasarawa states have inaugurated committees to look into alleged cases of police brutality and bring perpetrators to justice, and urge citizens to remain calm as their demands will be carefully looked into. In Abuja, Abubakar Usman Akwanga, NTA News.
Abubakar Usman Akwanga's background report sets the tone for the program tonight. Like we said, we're taking a look at NSAS. In the course of the report, the program, we shall be taking phone calls, and if you see the number below the screen, you make your call. If you're doing this, please turn down the volume of your television set and go straight to the point, raise your concerns, don't break my role. Also, you can be part of the conversation tonight through our Twitter handle at Tuesday Live NTA. My guest tonight, I have retired Inspector General of Police, Deputy Habil Joshak. Habil Joshak is also a legal practitioner. Good to have you on Tuesday Live tonight.
Thank you for having me. Good evening, viewers.
Also tonight, I have President, African Council on Narcotics, former State Security Advisor to the Cross River State Governor, and also a security expert, Rekpene Bassi.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here tonight.
Joining us tonight via Zoom, we have Jide Ojo. Jide Ojo is a public affairs analyst. He joins us via Zoom. Good to see you tonight on Tuesday Live.
Hey, Nigerians.
We shall also be having, joining us via Zoom in Abuja, Dr. Kabiru Adamu. He's a security risk management expert. I hear he's already up. Well, if the signals are clear, we'll introduce him accordingly, but he's joining us via Zoom in Abuja. He is a security risk management expert. Well, gentlemen, welcome once again to Tuesday Live. Yes. And I must say, we are not going to take a look at what caused it. It has happened. The news is everywhere, both fake and name it, is all over. But as it is now, we shall be looking at the way forward to all this. So beginning with DIG. where we are, we're not looking at where it started, where we are right now. Government has made appeal, all kinds of groups have made appeal to resolving the whole situation as it is. What's your comments as we begin?
Thank you so much. In summary, my comment is that what is being done by the government of the day and the security, that is the Nigerian police, and other stakeholders is what should be done. I'm sure the steps so far that have been taken have been very, very assuring. Number one, the monster the people call the SARS has already been disbanded, and another alternative that will be police friendly, with a lot of input that was supposed to be made into that, so that they can give members of the public, confidence of the fact that they were employed, to ensure safety of lives and properties of Nigerians. The government swiftly went into action. Most governors have set up a commission of inquiry, and they've been asked to look into what has happened, the activities of the SARS in their various states. I think that is a step forward, and I think that we're on the right direction. I think what is being done should be encouraged to continue to build upon this.
Okay, Lepene, maybe if the protesters had heed the advice to sheath their sword and allow things be, it not get to this extent.
Well, the question would be, what was government's response to the demands, the reasons for which the protesters had gone out to the streets to protest? Had government listened to them, called them, start with them to try to address some of this? If we take the disbandment of SARS, which federal government promptly implemented, which was one of their requests, then the panels that have been put together by different governors in different states. Well, to that extent, we would say, yes, they ought to have, stopped the protest. But beyond, the disbandment of SARS, the protesters had also put across a whole lot of other demands which they wanted government to look into, including the poor condition of service for police, officers, which is a reflection of, their attitude and brutality to members of the public, including the general decadence, poverty in society, the prevalence in criminal activities, and several others. So out of these several others, only one was selected, and has been addressed. Maybe that was why the protesters didn't quite feel assuaged or satisfied and happy, and carried on the protest. But even beyond that, one would have expected that, apart from the pronouncement that the president had made, which instructed the disbandment of SARS by the Inspector General of Police, the president would have gone beyond that to make a broadcast to address the nation on this, because the issues that have been raised, quite a lot of them are, fundamental, to and germane. The protests had behind it good causes, and I thought that government would have tried to address this, or at least, even though the protesters were not properly organized in terms of significant elements who stood out to spearhead the protest, but it was not difficult it wouldn't have been difficult for the federal government or for government at the federal level to have been able to identify, some of them, across the states, and provided logistics, bring them together and try to talk to them. We saw a few instances when the Inspector General of Police had invited someone like Davido and spoke with him. But beyond Davido and a few such elements, government ought to have tried, to go beyond that level to mobilize the youths, who spearheaded this, to try to find out what, their concerns were, and try to reassure them. But more importantly, one expects that, His Excellency, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces would make, a national broadcast to the effect. And I think that it's unfortunate that, because the youths didn't sheath their sword or didn't quite get assuaged by some of the initial pronouncements to disband SARS, they proceeded with the strike action, and hoodlums seized the initiative, took advantage of it. But that, again, is because police who were the subject of this protest, who would have, guided the protesters, were not there, for good reason. You saw how in some instances, in some states, policemen were harassed, attacked, some of them were injured. And in fact, I saw...
we'll go into the nitty-gritty of all that. I just wanted to have the opening thoughts.
Very well.
And you have gotten somewhere with it. Let's go to Jide Ojo. Jide, like I said, we don't necessarily need to go to what caused it, where we are with it. Which way forward?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. First and foremost, my heart bleeds for the indiscriminate shooting that took place at Lekki Toll Plaza today. I think it was mishandled. There's no justification under any guise for soldiers to have shot live bullets to disperse peaceful protesters. I think going forward, the president actually needs to urgently address the nation and restore confidence in the youth that prompt actions will be taken to not only compensate victims of this brutality. It is no longer police brutality. It has also escalated to become a military brutality, because what is being reported on live television and on social media about the killings that took place at Lekki Toll Plaza today, this evening, is unwarranted, is unprofessional, is condemnable. Having said that, yes, the youth failed to be assuaged. You do not blame them. You blame past administrations whose words have not been their bounds, who have continually promised and failed the Nigerian masses, not only Nigerian youth, Nigerian masses. There are fast situations. Even this NSAS protest did not start today. They had previously been proscribed at least 2 times in the past. Yet they continue to operate. So when the police inspector general said they have been disbanded and a new tactical squad called SWAT has been formed, they were not assuaged because they know from previous experience, even under this administration, they have not kept to their words. And all of a sudden, after about 12 days, you now have a scenario where you now suddenly hoodlums and thugs are having field day attacking peaceful protesters. This marks of orchestration. And there are footages of what also happened in Abuja today, where it is perceived that our state-sponsored attack on the peaceful protesters. I now warn that the state, Nigerian government, should not drive these protesters underground. Because if they become faceless, it might be very difficult to have people to dialogue with. I appreciate the effort of the government in meeting some of the demands. After all, we have seen a number of states setting up judicial commission of inquiries. We have seen a number of states inaugurating committees involving youth and students, mobilizing funds under the Victim Support Fund. We have seen the National Human Rights Commission submitting reports of the presidential panel to look into the act of police brutality, submitting his report yesterday to the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, where about 35 people were recommended for dismissal and wide range of punishments meted out. But the previous renegation on the promises of government is what has made these Nigerian youths, peaceful protesters, not to leave the streets. And I think in going forward, Nigerian government, both federal and state, needs to handle this situation with utmost care.
Okay, Jide,
so that it does not degenerate.
They need to handle it with utmost care. Let me hold you there, Jide. I'll come back to you now. Dr. Kabiru Adamu is on now, joining us via Zoom. Dr. Kabiru, you have heard what Jide said. Steps have been taken. The retired DIG has made his point, Rekpene has made his point, and also Jide Ojo has made his point. Steps have been taken. Now, as a security risk management expert, steps have been taken, appeals have been made, yet this whole thing is not abating. What are your comments?
Thank you very much, and good evening all. The major point of contention is, I think, where we as leaders, we do not understand the mindset of the modern youth. And I say this with all sense of responsibility. I would give some reasons to explain what I mean. It appears that as a country, we were caught off guard with the whole movement. Yes, we know what triggered it. It was allegedly a development in Ughelli in Delta State where someone was said to have been killed. But later, the facts revealed that wasn't really what happened. But apparently, there has been an underground mobilization, and that's what I would like to focus on when I say we don't understand the mindset of the modern youth. That underground mobilization did not happen like you and I would discuss. I'll pick the phone, I'll call you, or I would rally a meeting, and the meeting will discuss. It happened online, and a lot of it probably through the dark web. So my worry, since this discussion started about 14 days ago, 2 weeks back, is what happened to the intelligence capabilities that we have as a country to monitor this type of mobilization that would have informed us to prepare for where we are today. What we are doing is catch up, and the catch up is informed what Jide described earlier on, the type of responses. Whether it's true or not, we do not know yet, but I think it informed it. So my point, at least my opening remarks, is to emphasize this other component that we need to start thinking about, the cyberspace where these youths are using to mobilize, they are using to generate funding, they are using to disburse the funding that unfortunately we do not seem to have an idea. So if you are dealing with sorry, I'm going to use the word for lack of a better word, they are our younger ones, they are our children. I don't want to use the word enemy, but in this instance, given what has happened in the last few days, if you are dealing with such a situation, physical responses is just secondary. The main response should be in the cyberspace where you can understand this movement and then respond to it. Perhaps in the course of our discussion, we can ask the question, what happened to the capabilities of the security agencies for surveillance of this cyberspace? I am aware that the Office of the National Security Advisor as an example, that of the National Intelligence Agency, that of DSS, and to an extent the police should have capabilities for that type of surveillance. But why were we caught off guard? How come we were blindsided by this? And unfortunately, we are now having to respond quickly. I'm very happy with some of the responses I've seen in the last few days. We've seen the Vice President apologizing. That is very honorable. We've seen today the Speaker of the House of Rep issuing a statement that the youth can resonate with. Perhaps in the course of the discussion, we can talk about how to handle a crisis of this nature, the kind of responses that security risk management provides for. But my opening remarks would rest here, saying that there is a cyberspace, and that is where these youths are operating.
Okay, Dr. Kabiru, still on you before I come back to the guest in the studio with me here. At times like this, I know there's a word like to err on the part of caution. At times like this, where we are now, what approach should be adopted? Is it force, negotiation, or what?
The world over, there are two basic ways of approaching a social movement: concession and then repression. Now, apparently, the government started with concession, and everybody commended the government for the way it handled the situation in the early stages. Very concessionary. The youths were allowed to protest. You know, we were appealing to them. You know, those of us who understood security know that there is a protest has a life cycle. It starts peacefully, and then unfortunately other forces would creep into it, especially in Nigeria, where there are so many contending forces. The likelihood that they will creep into it was there. So we kept on warning, you know, be cautious, be cautious. So where you try concession and it doesn't, you know, give you what you want, unfortunately, the only other option there is repression. But repression has consequences, and that is the consequences we will need to take into consideration. Like what happened in Lekki, I do not know the facts yet, so I will not reach any conclusions. But all I know is that gunshots were fired, allegedly by men in uniform. Now, those videos are out there. Mainstream media are broadcasting those videos. Social media would broadcast them, believe me. As at Saturday, the NSAS hashtag had 18 million you know, coverage on social media. 18 million as at Saturday. I don't know the figure for this week, but I can bet you it's above 18 million. So the whole world, including the United Nations, would see those things, and questions would arise as to who authorized those actions, and then more importantly, what kind of damage control measures will be taken. So my recommendation in this situation where concession was tried, and then unfortunately it appears force is now going to be used, I think we need to have a hybrid of the two. Law and order must be maintained. There is no doubt. No country will allow degeneration into anarchy. That's why the social contract, we elect a government to ensure there is law and order. Where someone or some group, some power influence is threatening that law and order, then government must take action. But that action must be within the limits of you know, our laws. So, for instance, guarding infrastructures, freeing highways and allowing free movement, those are all things. But how do you do that? Will you do that by firing live bullets into a crowd? Definitely no. So the bottom line is a hybrid of these two things. But again, it must be done legally within the law. But beyond that, I know we've spoken around some of the steps taken. There are a lot that we can do as a nation.
Okay, Dr. Kabiru, I'll come back to you. Let me hold you there for now. Thank you. We'll come back to Dr. Kabiru. Now, DIG Habila Joshua, I believe I'm correct right now.
Yeah, we are right.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
We have heard the opening thoughts of all of us, and with the experience you had and what is happening now, if you're summoned or consulted to offer advice to the men on the field across the country as we speak, by the last count, Plateau State, Ondo, Imo State, name it, they have issued curfews just That's what I've been issuing to all to stem the tide as it is right now. What would be your advice to your men on the field? Kabiru has talked about repression, but with caution, damage control. What would you be saying?
Okay, the way to go now, if I'm asked to profile some solution, one, I would want to appeal to our youth that so far, some of the issues that they've raised, I think across board, government and people of Nigeria have taken that serious. And we could see that actions are being initiated by the government. Mr. President, the governors, the Inspector General of Police, others are on their toes, preferring solution. And I think they're doing that fast enough. But you know that such decision must have some time for them to be able to get that which is right. The protesters, the youth, I think they should be patient enough. And I thought also that when they conceive this particular thing they're doing, I thought that they would have also built in, look at the security, do a rehearsal, and find out in the event of some other people trying to hijack this laudable policy, that laudable protest that they're doing. They would have also, I thought also that they should have made arrangement and tell government what exactly they would have looked, because they must have done that, and of course include security situation, security concern, so that they should know that there could be others who would want to think the other way, either to ensure that it does not succeed, or mischievous enough to kill that policy. So I expected that they should have realized this. And so I saw, when I went round, I saw police officers also trying to provide some security, trying to be around where they are. But when there were attacks on them, and attacks on their facilities like the police station, they got afraid. And if you do that, if you attack your civil authority, because of course the police are being accused, so you could see that the morale of the police is not there, because anybody could just perceive something and would want to harm them. And this is what has happened. And that's why in operation, when the police are being attacked and their facilities like police stations are being attacked, and the incident is repeated, that is another way of asking another superior of forces to come in to try to intervene, and that's the military. And so I would want a situation whereby the police should be incorporated. Of course, since the government have agreed to look at the ills of SARS, intimidation, extortion, extrajudicial killings, very serious offenses, and the Inspector General of Police have sent a lot of signals. There are a lot of people now that he has sent through what we call the orderly room, and those of them also that had been queried and have been asked to appear before the committee. And I think I have seen quite a number that he has dismissed and ordered prosecution. I think that kind of action is very, very encouraging. And so what I would want the youth on the street to know is that there will always be others who would want to come and truncate that process. And in doing that, the course will not be very clear. And therefore, they should go back to the drawing board and know exactly, because I can see that the government is very sincere in terms of what is happening now. The governor, they've activated, the Nigerian police have been told what to do, and the IG is trying to implement that as fast as possible. We've seen also that the governors have also tried as much as possible to set up that judiciary commission to also look into, if not just sweeping it under the ground. They are coming to get the details of what has happened and hold the police accountable for their action. And so my advice is that we should go back and see exactly what we want and how to go for it. Otherwise, this will escalate into something else.
Yes, when it got to a point even the governors, rather than listen to the protesters, led them to police commands in their various states. By the last count, Bayelsa State Governor, on his way back, he met them on the way, left his vehicle, went up to them, addressed them. Osun State Governor was attacked, and the very next day, he addressed the nation and said he was not attacked by the protesters, but hoodlums. Now, from what Kabiru said, other forces have crept in.
Yes.
Now, where lies the place of intelligence capabilities? As it is now, other forces have crept in, agreed. How do we manage the situation so that we don't lose the entire process?
You see, in reflection of what Kabiru said, we almost can easily conclude that there has been some kind of intelligence failure. It would mean that the planning of the protest, even though it was spontaneous, had some undercurrent in terms of the initial organizers talking with and amongst themselves, either via the social media or other means. And so, had contemplated and in fact formed the intention to carry out this protest. And one would have expected, therefore, that the appropriate intelligence agency may have been able to pick this signal early enough, and then something would have been done about it. But the truth of the matter is that in a very complex society like Nigeria is, on a daily basis, and I think that I should be in a position to know that the hub, in terms of intelligence gathering that government, puts together from different security agencies, comes in very large quantities. Sometimes you don't know, which of the information, you need to act upon almost immediately to forestall, breach of security or breakdown of law and order. And so to the extent that, this plan went on undetected, and to the extent that nothing was done about it, and we have gotten to where we have, it will not be, far-fetched to say there may have been some intelligence failure, therefore. But having said that, we are in a state right now where we must pick the pieces to redeem our common future.
That's the point.
This situation cannot be allowed to degenerate further than it is, because already we are having the situation being given ethnic coloration, being given political coloration, being given religious interpretation, and all kinds of insinuations and speculations are being made. And it is very, very dangerous. So, like the retired DIG said, at a time like this, and I just hope that it's also done within the limits of the law, there are statutory provisions for military aids to civil authority when the first responders, which is the police, are unable to cope with the enormity of security challenges, where the military come in, to intervene to assist military, civil authority within the limits of the law. But that has to be done, again, strictly within the limits of the law, so that we are not at risk of, being treated as, a pariah nation, or being, frowned upon by the international community. The truth of the matter is that across the world, everybody is watching what's going on in Nigeria. You also recall that this protest is going on, in several parts of the world, like in the United States, like in the UK, and some other countries. So they are sympathizing with the youths, because the reason for which the youths, of course, ab initio went out to protest are germane, real. There had been, brutality by SARS and, security generally. And we cannot, try to solve a problem by creating more problems. So military brutality in trying to deal with it, with the situation, to contend it. And that's where it's very dangerous, because police, for example, are trained, to try to contain, situations, to try to contain them. But the military are trained, to defend, and for example, whereas the policeman would try to arrest, and the military when they're deployed, they would, go beyond what the police would do and perhaps, shoot to kill, So, and that's why, as quickly as possible, everything that can be done and needs to be done to stem the tide of this protest from taking a dangerous turn has to be done, and as quickly as possible.
Okay, Jide, everything that needs to be done should be done. Now, there is a particular group of persons that are so visibly silent, and they say silence is golden. Maybe we need to speak to them. The people protesting, whether NSAS or pro-SARS, name it, they all come from somewhere. They didn't just happen. They come from homes, they have parents, they have uncles, they have mothers, they have religious leaders. What role should these persons be playing? They appear very silent.
Well, you may think they are silent, but I don't think they are silent. On this matter, like Rekonet said, it has taken religious coloration. You've seen a number of Pentecostal pastors openly expressing support for these protesters. I have seen videos of parents who are doing videos to call for mobilization of funds for these protesters because they believe in their cause. And that is why it has taken a dangerous dimension. I would never have supported the kind of protest that would get our youth in harm's way, as it has almost turned out to be within the last 48 hours. And when curfew order was imposed in Edo yesterday, arising from the breakdown of law and order leading to the forceful release of almost 2,000 inmates in two correctional centers in Edo State, in Benin and Oku, as well as the imposition of curfew in Lagos, in Imo, in I think Ogun and a couple of other states today. The right thing for parents to have told their children is to withdraw from the streets. Because I know once a curfew had been imposed, there is that tendency for law enforcement agencies to want to enforce that curfew order. And in wanting to enforce that curfew, there will most likely be casualties. But what I could not fathom is using of live bullets to want to disperse lawful, legitimate, unarmed, and peaceful protesters. That has gone beyond a reasonable force to enforce a curfew order. Those who will or has lost their children or ward in this mayhem of the last 48 hours, how do you think they will perceive the government of the day? They definitely will not speak kindly about this government, which is why it is advised that Mr. President steps in and talk to Nigerian youth as a father and give timelines and deliverables within which government should be within which government should be held to account. I think that's what Nigerian youths are waiting to hear. To say that, okay, this victim support fund will mobilize resources in 3 months and will start disbursement in the 4th month. This judicial commission of inquiry will sit for 3 months or for 6 months, and the report will be operationalized within another 2 months or 3 months. If there are deliverables, there are timelines, I believe that these youths Having also called them to be members of some of these committees, including the Commission of Inquiry, we want to give the country, the president, the administration, a chance to prove itself. But when you are making rhetorical statements, and we have disbanded SARS, no member of SARS will be in SWAT, who can independently verify that there will be no swapping of membership? Because we do not know how many, I do not know any SARS member. I will not know if a SARS member is posted into SWAT. And I believe many Nigerians will not know because we do not have their nominal role. We do not know their identity. So what I believe, and responding directly to your question, I think parents are talking to their children. Church and opinion molders are talking. We have seen response from the National Assembly, very laudable response. You could see the fervor, the zeal with which the Right Honorable Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila spoke today, to the extent that he said that if there is no resources, no funds earmarked for the victims of police brutality in Nigeria, he will not sign on the budget. That is a kind of statement that we are looking forward to from our leaders, to say, hold us to account on this. I'm making this promise on my honor. And that's why many Nigerian youth are saying, we want Mr. President to address us, to give us concrete assurances, not just promissory notes, as has been given in the past. Come up with concrete terms and conditions upon which you can hold your administration to account. And that is what the administration has fell short of doing. And something that is also worrisome is what I alluded to earlier on. There are news out there that some of the attacks on peaceful protesters were state-sponsored. I mean, well, that needs to be dispelled. If it is not true, the administration needs to come out very strongly to dispute that.
Issue needs to be verified. As much as the allegations are on the streets, we should not trump up that here because it's not been confirmed yet. As much as we see it on social media, let's go to other issues. I'll still come back to you anyway. Quickly, let's look at the image factor, gentlemen. Now, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and other top government officials have been summoned the diplomatic corps and addressed them. Yeah, no. Kabiru, this question is to you before I take it to Rupene and Joshak. The image factor, the protesters, the hoodlums, Nigerians, everybody who supports whatever is happening both ways, even the people in government. The image factor, where lies the image of the country? So looking at the place of patriotism, as much as this problem is there, are we going to rubbish the image of the country?
Exactly. We don't have any other country but Nigeria. Even if you migrate and you get a job in the US or Canada or wherever, at the end of the day, your identity is tied to your home state, your country, Nigeria. And I think that should be our uniting factor, to remember that after all is said and done, this is what we have. Irrespective of the forces at play, as someone who understands intelligence, I know that there are forces at play. Irrespective of what they are and what their motive are, that is what they should always remember, that the continuation of this is affecting the image of the country. And that includes the government too, how it responds to this incident. I said earlier on that we're playing catch-up. And the likelihood when you are playing catch-up is that you make some knee-jerk responses. And unfortunately, knee-jerk responses will come with consequences. And so I think we need to take a step back, study the situation, and then always do a contingency plan. For instance, what are the consequences of an action? A curfew has been declared. What would be the consequence of that curfew? How will the international community interpret and the imposition of a curfew in a particular state? How will the international community interpret the deployment of the military in a particular location and things like that? In today's world, like I mentioned earlier on, there are two basic responses that you do when you have such a social movement. The one that we are contemplating right now has a lot of consequences, and so the determining factor should be how we're seen as a nation. But I know there's a school of thought that says our sovereignty is more important than any other thing. So anything that seems to either affect or threaten our national unity as a state, then we should jettison every other factor. I'm not in that school of thought. I'm in the school of thought that says use all the means together and develop a hybrid, because we're not fighting an external enemy. Nobody will clap hands for us if we descend on these youths. They are our children, and we need to handle them in a manner like if you have, a prodigal child, as it were. And so the manner should be one of first speaking to them, and I can quickly run through the three basic ways that you can handle such a situation when you're speaking to the youth. One of them is show empathy. Show empathy by showing that you understand their plight, and then build confidence. Now, building confidence, Jide has spoken extensively around some of the things that can be done to build confidence. The reform agenda should have a time frame for implementation. The time frame for implementation should be measurable. Youths understand that, especially the educated ones. When you introduce metrics, they can relate to that because that's what they study. So they know you're talking facts. We're yet to do that already. So I'm hoping that in the next few days, weeks, we will be able to come out with that. And then the last one, which is probably the most important one, is to give them hope. 40 million, 70 million are out of job, or even where they have the jobs, if it doesn't really measure up to their qualification. So how do you give them that hope? I can mention infrastructure. How do we solve the electricity challenge that we have in the country? Roads, and then the second one, of course, is capital. And then lastly, the security, solve the security situation. All of this government is doing. But then how do you communicate that to a youth so that he understands you? The means of communication is also very important. I mentioned earlier on that the average youth in Nigeria, is very active in the cyberspace. Now, we need to remember that sometimes, even when we're communicating to them, they are not listening. They can't hear us because, frankly, the medium of communication is not one they are used to. The last time I checked, the most popular social means for communicating among youth is Twitter. And then I think there is Facebook, then there is Snapchat, and then TikTok. How many of us actually know how to use this as adults? How many times when we're issuing such policies do we adopt this medium? So we need to remember that in order to reach these youth, not just to sit in an office where, frankly, the guys are angry looking at you because you are in an A-seat office and you are telling them, why are you out there on the street? No, you need to come down to their level, understand how they are thinking, and then communicate to them using these three things that I mentioned. Then they would believe you, and maybe they would now understand that at last these guys are listening to us, and then we would see probably a respite in all of this. And at the end of the day, what we are trying to arrive at, which is a better image for us to come out of this unscattered, our image is not affected, we'll probably do that.
Thank you, Kabiru. You can be part of the conversation tonight. Our phone lines are open, and also through our Twitter handle at TuesdayLive NTA. But we have a couple of reports. When we come back with the reports, to take some tweets and sustain the conversation on developing issues and the way forward on the NSAS protest in Nigeria. Our first report is coming from Benin, Edo State.
Just a few vehicles and people on the streets moving freely. From the city center to the outskirts, there is no security presence. Some youths are seen at strategic junctions mounting obstacles. Markets, business districts and offices are closed in compliance to the 24-hour curfew. Also, the debris from the bonfires of Monday are visible on major and link roads in the metropolis. The Edo State government, in a statement this Tuesday, has warned residents to stay indoors as the 24-hour curfew subsists and is active till further notice. It has also set up a judicial panel of inquiry in response to the yearnings of the youths as articulated in the demands of the NSAS protesters.
Our next stop will be Gombe.
This is the peaceful rainbow runabout in Gombe metropolis, where the protesters were meeting. Their addresses attracted attentions, and within no time, a group of hoodlums appeared. They dispersed the crowd, leaving some people injured, including NTA cameraman Ansapta Jimmy and some journalists. NTA's camera was damaged beyond repairs. Within the hour, the protest venue was deserted, while security agencies take charge of the area. Commissioner of Police confirmed the incident.
I got information that some miscreants actually attacked the NSAS protesters. But the problem is how to identify who the real NSAS protesters and the hoodlums. That is where the problem is. Nobody comes out. They wrote a letter to us, which I advised that they should wait so that we will assess the situation in the town before they embark on that particular protest. But they declined and went ahead with it. But so the least we can do is to ensure that there's no breakdown of law and order. Happily, there was nothing like that.
Normalcy was restored and everyday life activity continued in Gombe metropolis. Meanwhile, the state government, through the Chief of Staff Government House, condemned the attack on the protesters, pledging full and immediate investigation into the matter, with a view to bringing those found wanting to justice.
Still sustaining the conversation on NSAS protests in Nigeria. Let's go to Port Harcourt.
The youths, drawn from various parts of the state, had celebrities in their midst. Their prayers are not different from other NSAS protests. They include an end to police brutality, total police reform, and disbandment of the SARS units.
The leaders of this current protest want their fellow youths also to give way and allow the government to act on the issues raised by the Nigerian youths.
We are solidly behind President Muhammadu Buhari, and we urge him to work swiftly. We also urge him to make sure whatever he is doing, he should act very fast.
Thank President Muhammadu Buhari for ending SARS for all of us. We need a peaceful and a very good environment to live with.
They marched from Polo Club through Abarut, Oluobasanjo, to the state police headquarters, where they delivered their message to the police high command.
We sincerely appreciate you and assure you that you will see a different police, different policing, fighting crime in the best professional way, in international approved ways.
To the leadership of the latest protesters, the call to an end of the series of repeated protests becomes necessary to avert breakdown of law and order.
We proceed to Ebonyi.
Economic activities was brought to a halt following NSAS protests in Abakaliki, the state capital, barricading major streets in and around Government House axis and police headquarters. Governor Umahi, while commending their peaceful disposition, emphasized that the time has come for the government to be sensitive to the plight of the youth, stressing that his administration will not only address their complaints, but will ensure that the victims are fully compensated.
On with the Commissioner of Police and the Army Commander is to dismantle roadblocks in Ebonyi State. Mandate for judicial panel of inquiry. We will set it up tomorrow. To achieve a lot for our nation, Nigeria, we will no longer eat the future of our children. We are going to be careful in our governance. We will take you into confidence.
Protesters, in solidarity with the victims of police brutality, light up candles as a mark of honor.
Those are reports coming from those locations. And quickly, before we take the tweets, let me throw these questions to Joshak and Rekpene. Now, let's speak to the conscience of Nigerians and even the protesters, both the NSAS, ProSAS, and the hoodlums put together. Now, if you burn down a police station, all the facilities, all the hardware, software they use to protect, maintain law and order, and you eliminate policing, are we safe?
Look, well,
okay.
Well, first, let us be clear on this, that the protesters who came out ab initio to express unhappiness with the activities of SARS, amongst other issues, did not come out with the intention to burn police stations, attack police personnel, police officers on the streets. As a matter of fact, I keep thinking that if the protesters understood the need for protection, security protection, they needed to have worked very closely with the police. As even in the case in the United States, when George Floyd was killed, you know, the Black Lives Matter protest, you saw policemen, you know, going out with protesters, giving them escort, protecting and preventing hoodlums from hijacking the process. But because police were the subject of this protest, in some states, there were police escorts who went out to prevent criminal elements from hijacking the process. In some others, policemen simply stayed aloof, stayed away, because there were instances where some of them got attacked. And already police has been perceived in very bad light and being the subject of the protest. So they have rather approached the issues or the protests in a very soft manner because, as it were, they didn't want to be blamed any further. But who then began to burn the police stations, attack and kill policemen? Hoodlums. Because the process, you know, was, the process got out of control, out of hand. So criminal elements, misguided characters, hoodlums, criminals who had been waiting on the wings simply stepped in and began to do the havoc, which is unfortunate. Look, by no means would anybody encourage anybody to attack a policeman because maybe the mantra is misconceived, but I still believe that police, as first responders, are closest to civil society than any of the other armed forces. And so that camaraderie, that relationship, that friendship ought to be there. So it's unfortunate, and I think it's absolutely condemnable that we should allow, you know, what hitherto would have been a peaceful, protest, that had real value in terms of what they set out to, to ask for the good of the entire nation, would be hijacked by criminal elements. It's very, very unfortunate. And we should condemn it with, everything we have as much as possible. It's unacceptable, it is wrong, and cannot afford to continue because of, other consequences that may follow. Like we said earlier, already, if you listen to social media, and social media isn't even helping, because some of the reports that you read in the social media are exaggerated, some of them are misconstrued, some of them are misrepresented, and so on and so forth. And so the need for caution, the need for circumspection, the need to be guided cannot be too emphasized. And may God help our, children to understand that we have no other country than this country. If the country has not been so fair to them, two wrongs do not make a right. We can all come together, sit together, pick up the pieces of the past or even the present to redeem our common future. They have made a point, valid point, but we can't proceed on the path of destruction, the path of, maiming, killing, and burning of, key, property, and allow the situation to, to snowball into total anarchy. Absolutely unacceptable.
Okay, let me take your perspective before we take the tweets.
Yes, I align with my colleague here, and I would want to say that our youth should go back to the drawing board and look at what exactly is playing out. I could see that they're losing the grip, and they are not able to find out or decipher who are hoodlums who have just joined to give them a bad name. They've made a point, and loud and clear, government have listened from the presidency to the least person. The governors are on their toes that I have seen. And I think it's a very good thing, because I think they've done well by coming out to do this. But like I said now, the situation is going out of hand. When you attack a police station and also attack police officers, a police officer that is armed, and you try to injure him or another person, his thought is that he must protect himself and protect that other person. And when you set buildings ablaze, he will use minimum force, because one of the conditions for any officer to use his firearm is in defense of somebody who is being attacked. And there's no other way that such a person can be safe. That officer will have to use his firearm. And if he's being attacked, and there's no other way that he could save himself, he will use that. And of course, we know that they are to shoot to maim in such situation, and that's why they are armed. But like I told you, shoot to maim, of course, yes. But that situation should have not happened, because I would want a situation where, yes, the Nigerian police are the accuser. A lot of things that have been said have been confirmed. And government from the state and the national and the local level have agreed that there are a lot of sins of some police officers that have done unprintable things. And the Inspector General of Police also have agreed. And all of us have been asked to find out, to give some report. And that is being done. And I was thinking that we should go toward that line with what the government have said. And you saw when the government even said, we're sorry. I was thinking that, yes, we're not saying that these protesters should dismantle what they're doing, but we're saying that they should be more careful now and ensure that this laudable exercise, this kind of thing they're pushing, that is going to be very beneficial to this country, or to send a message to security agencies that they are paid to protect the lives of the individual, and to help government to also provide welfare and security of the people. They should stop at that and look back and ensure that they reorganize themselves and never to go this way.
Okay. When we return after the break, we'll take some tweets and also phone calls. So send in your tweets in reaction to the issue. Raise your concerns. Don't be vulgar. We are just discussing the way forward for the betterment of our country. And when we return, we'll begin from Kabiru, Jidojo, then come back to the studio here. Just after this time out. Stay with us.
The recent genuine concerns and agitations by Nigerians about the excessive use of force and, in some cases, extrajudicial killings and wrongful conduct by men of the Nigerian police force. The disbanding of SARS is only the first step in our commitment to extensive police reform in order to ensure that the primary duty of the police and other law enforcement agencies remains the protection of lives and livelihoods of our people. We will also ensure that all those responsible for misconduct or wrongful acts are brought to justice. We also deeply regret the loss of life of the young man in Oyo State during the recent demonstrations. I have directed that the circumstances of his death should be thoroughly investigated. Meanwhile, it is important to recognize that the vast majority of men and women of the police force are hardworking and diligent in performing their duties. The few bad eggs should not be allowed to tarnish the image and reputation of the force.
Sometime we never see the kind things Nigeria they make. In no reach waiting with the shopulato. We even they use $22 billion take bring things from Obodo Imbo every year. To bring better come inside we Obodo Nigeria, now so our government arrange them import policy come. Now, for us to survive, we must to learn how to feed we serve. So far, that plan don't nearly work finish. Sake of CBN we stand gidiga to support local farmers and small market people. Our plan to give 10 million people work with 10 products under 5 years don't dey pure. We fit to do am. Make we buy Nigeria to grow Nigeria. Call your banker today for more information on how to get involved.
Mr. President said the youth of this country have spoken, and he has heard, and he has since gone to work for the youth of our country, not just as a president, but even as a father of the younger generation.
The real Nigerian youth is a patriot, not a tool of destabilization.
Mr. President made an appeal to the Nigerian youth that this protest, wherever held, should be done in a peaceful manner. The Nigerian youth should be on their guard to make sure that elements that will infiltrate and distract them from the very purpose of their protest should be prevented from doing so.
Listen to the voice of reason.
My name is Nando Jamda Muhammad.
Stevita Hussein Musa.
Roduna Joel Finji. Said Musa John. I'm a carpenter. I've been doing this for more than 8 years now.
And I said that plantain na kai kimamin shekara uku.
I've been selling my tomatoes for about 10 years now, and I do it for a better Nigeria.
And I do it for a better Nigeria.
Ina wannan sana'ar lemu ne domin Nigeria ta ci gaba. Ina sa domin Nigeria ta kyau.
And you can see we are doing our small little work to make Nigeria great.
As you can see, I'm a technician and I'm doing it to help myself and to help my generation.
Ina zaune ne a Plateau na business. Kuma ina yin wannan domin ci gaban ƙasar Najeriya.
For a better Nigeria. This message is from the National Orientation Agency.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
And tonight we take a look at the NSAS protests. As we went on break, a couple of tweets came in, and in the course of addressing the tweets, I believe some calls will come in. We'll take them. So I'll appeal to my panelists to take a listen to the tweets. We'll start reacting from Kabiru, Jidojo, Rekpene, and Joshak. So the first tweet's coming from Onyewama at D1 Nick says, I can categorically tell you that the government of the day has hijacked the peaceful protests and innocent citizens are being killed. Musa Zuntu, it says, I was in support of the protest, but I decided to pull out because of leadership in the coalition. No protest should succeed without leadership to listen to the response of the government. Sadiq, it says, I think it is wrong to look at the issue from one angle. The security operative reserves the right to maintain law and order against all odds. The youth have spoken, government has responded. Let's give the government the opportunity to act. Oladejo Solomon, it says, it's not only about police brutality, it is about bad governance, unemployment, 500,000 NPA volunteers resacked without any proper provision for their welfare. It is about high cost of government running. We want a sincere action like the NA slashing their salary. I don't know what NA means. Ahmed Olariwaju says, it is quite unfortunate the media team at M. Buhari handled this issue. The youths are at Twitter. Where are the spokespersons handling at M. Buhari's account? Last on this trail, well, the tweet ends at this point. So let's, with no particular order, let's just react generally to the tweets, pro and coin. Kabiru, let's begin with you.
Thank you. I mean, frankly, I'm not surprised with the diverse nature of the tweets. Nigerians we're like that. We interpret things differently, sometimes using our either cultural, religious, or even our educational background. So very diverse tweets, some explaining the way they see the NSAS protest, some justifying it, and of course, unfortunately, some condemning it, as it were. My reaction would be we need to control the cyberspace. That is where all of this activity is happening. People form opinions based on what they see there. A lot of it, unfortunately, is fake news, and because there is no counter narrative, then people reach their conclusions. I mean, the last tweet spoke about, the handler of the president's, Twitter handle, as it were. Content developers at government level should understand the significance of, driving the messaging and not allowing whoever is, behind all of this. How do you go about countering 18 million, mentioning of NSAS on social media? So strategic communication by the whole of government, all the machinery of government would be able to counter that. And for me, that would be my, recommendation, as it were, and my response to this tweet.
Okay, Jide, before you take your response, let me add this other few ones. Fajait Abiodun says, we protested against violence and they responded with more violence. We spoke up about getting beaten, extorted and killed. They responded with more killings. Our hearts are broken, but our spirits will never die. Douglas Orafa, he says, I appreciate my big brother Kabiru speaking on Zoom. Some of us were born into this anarchy called Nigeria. Well, unfortunate, and told by our parents that Nigeria was once good. We see no hope and can't wait for any promise but a revolution that government is making us consider. Well, that's really unfortunate. Alternate Fact says, do those who don't join the protest have rights of movement? They are using the protest to cause untold hardship. Do they want good governance to happen in a day or a week? Taiwo Tolupe Oladiran says, NSAS protest goes beyond addressing police brutality. It is an opportunity for the youth to communicate their grievances at misgovernance of the present Nigerian state. Government can do better by engaging youth productively. at Twitter. Orafa again says the older generation has built the monster they see in the youth by ripping us off our future, and the frustration we feel is exhibited in the protest. Last on the series, Sadiq says the media has a greater role to play. Some of our private media houses are one-sided and not balancing the stories. They are carrying out a systematic smear campaign, thereby worsening the situation. Jide, you could respond, and I think you should begin from the very last one I read.
Yeah, very, very incisive point about smear campaign or subtle smear campaign by some of the private media enterprises. It's a worrisome development, no doubt. And I want to give kudos to NTA for always striking a balance, not always after breaking of news and all of that. But having said that, we need to tread with caution. There is a bottled up anger in the land against government. And you could see the response just few hours after the purported massacre in Lekki. There are news reports that a couple of new generation banks have been gutted with fire. That is just to tell the story why government needs to tread with caution. These youth can crumble the economy, they can crumble and ground the country if care is not taken. Because like Kabiru said, these people are engaging in, they are not only doing peaceful protest, they also have the capacity to use the cyberspace more effectively than government does. And you could see in the last 1 week, a number of ministry, departments, and agencies of government whose websites have been successfully hacked. Now, unknown people have set ablaze a couple of new generation banks on Victoria Island in Lagos. Where does that leave the poor masses of Nigeria? It is just to appeal to the youth that when we destroy this country, we have no other place to call our home. This is where we have the bragging right to call ourselves citizens. You go to US or Europe or Americas or even the Middle East, you are going to be a second-class citizen, and you, no matter how proficient you are, no matter how well-educated you are, this country is where you can truly, truly call yourself a citizen. So it is an appeal that our leaders, our political leaders, must make to resonate with these people. There must be a call to dialogue before things degenerate any further. We do not know what will happen in the next 24, 48 hours. But if what has happened today is indicative of what may happen, I hope the economy of the country is not crumbled by some of these misguided youths. So I'm joining the appeal to say, let's not destroy our home. There are problems, no doubt. There are challenges. I have also been a victim of police brutality. I've suffered insufferable damage, even very recently, as even last weekend. But what do? You can't give up on your country. So it's an appeal that our leaders need to pick up at different levels, from local government chairpersons down to the state governors, down to the federal government, ministers, commissioners. Every political appointee need to tread with caution. They need to guard their utterances. They need to be more sympathetic and empathetic to the cause of Nigerian youth. 65% of our population belongs to this age bracket. And many of them have been disillusioned because they graduated without jobs. They have no infrastructure. They have no means of gainful employment, which is why some of them are taken to the internet scam, which actually was what bring about the wrong profiling by the SARS operatives, who allegedly believe that anyone wearing dreadlocks, using smartphones, carrying laptops, and riding a Porsche car must be an internet fraudster. So the bottom line is our leaders must rise up to the occasion. We cannot use more repression. Look at the tweet that I don't know whether it's a boy or a girl or a lady or a man, but he was telling that the complaint of police brutality, government has responded with higher force. The complaint of bad governance, and look at the response that they are getting. So we must do everything as our leaders. They must not drive these youths underground. We cannot survive a guerrilla warfare in Nigeria of today. The economy is already in bad shape, even as at October 8th, when the president tabled the 2013-2021 appropriation bill. He did say that our country is ailing economically and that we are hoping to get out of it by 2021. So if we have more damage to public utilities and infrastructure, that we are complaining is not sufficient, that we are complaining is that there is a wide infrastructural gap. If we not destroy the few that currently exist, then when are we going to get out of the wood? So the bottom line is, as my brother Kabiru Adamas enunciated, all those prognoses he has made, the solutions he has proffered, government should take a second look at them. This is not the time to show superior force. This is the time to carry this, to bring these people, bring them out of their hiding, give them assurances that they will be protected, hear them out, and respond speedily and promptly to many of their concerns. Not rhetorics. Rhetorics will not save us from the impending doom. I dare say the only way out is adequate, concrete responses that will convince the youth that they have a country that they can be proud of.
Thank you, Jide. Your response.
My take on the tweets very clearly is that they are a reflection of our complex and dynamic nature as a people. One thing that comes from out of them is the fact that those who sent in the tweet have expressed maturity and balance, on a number of the issues that they have raised. For example, clearly the perception around is that certain elements may have hijacked the protests, and this is not difficult to understand, given the developments in the past couple of hours in the country. One tweet talked about poor leadership, in the coalition. It could have been that gave vent to, miscreants and misguided elements, hijacking the process to carry out the kind of mayhem that we're seeing around the place. And one other tweet talked about, looking at things from, from different angles, not one particular angle. And there was one that talked about whether those of us who are not involved in the protest do not have a right to move freely and go about our businesses. And I think that everybody's right, stops where the other person's right begins. So it's the need to respect the rights of others, even as we go about what we're doing, is very important. But having said all of that, one of the tweets that is very significant and touched me greatly was the one that talked about the response to violence with greater violence and force with more force. I don't think that two wrongs make a right. and they need to do whatever we're doing. Because of the fact that the international community is watching what is going on in this country, they need to balance what is done and do them within the limits of the law. Cannot be too emphasized. But more importantly, I think that we all need to embrace dialogue, 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 and dialogue. Thank you.
So that they will say the reward for hard work is more work.
As
so
they
in this
would say,
case,
yeah,
dialogue,
dialogue, dialogue.
Joshak.
Well, we could see that from the tweet, it does appear as if the youth, are very suspicious of the government and whoever that is coming in to intervene. You could see that they are saying there's a perception that they've built within themselves that it is the government that is hijacking the process by planting in these other guys that are pro SAS. And so, perception is more than reality. And so, this time around, the government should try as much as possible to maybe begin to open a window where every day there should be dialogue, reassuring the youth that government wouldn't do that, because government, I'm sure, would have done something that is in the open, and more so that the police and the security that would be with them, they should coop them so that they can fish those ones that are not part of the youth, for them to be accountable. They've also said that some of it is that the youth seems not to have good leadership. There's no well-defined leadership, and that's going to be wrong. There could be some other people taking records of all the places where the youth are, deliberately try to understand and study those that are not part of it, so that they can fish them out, or let them not cause any commotion like it is. Otherwise, if they are colorless, then there are issues. And so they should be very wise to make sure that they know who they are with. Because government is about welfare and security, and there are institutions that are made for that, and such institutions will always want to perform that duty. And that's why when the youth want to go the other way, trying to cause more commotion, you would see the police who are being accused. You will also see the military when it is time to do that. And so we have to be very careful, and you have to also imbibe the Inspector General of Police and the other commissioners of police, the AIGs, to let them know that whatever you want to do, let them be part of it, and let them also know your challenges, so that upon anything, they will be able to nip it in the bud.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. They are also talking about slashing of salaries of the National Assembly. And that is why we have to government have to open dialogue to make sure that they educate them on some of these things, because they have a lot of issues to throw up. And I think that it's high time that this dialogue thing should start, and it should be very open, engaging almost a lot of the cross section of the youth, so that this can be done. Otherwise, if the youth don't hit to this, then this process will be hijacked, and there will be no leadership, and there will be breakdown of law and order. And if there's a breakdown of law and order, the government and the security agencies have a responsibility to restore peace and order.
Well, that leads us to the next issue. But before then, let me just take these next three tweets, then we react to the next issues. Bright says, thank you so much, Jide Ojo. We still have honest people like you. NSAS is a peaceful protest. Some political power above took it and put sand for our garden. That's how it puts. What happened in Lagos was 100% constructed by the government or group of bad politicians. Salim Mohammed says, the protesters are a representation of aggrieved Nigerians, including me. Our leaders are dishonest in the use of brutal force against Nigerians. Havila Obong, it is unfortunate that the Nigerian government has milked us dry. This protest goes beyond the police brutality and end SARS, as the government is responsible for the ills that has befallen us. I think this is more about end bad governance. And the last year says the protest about bad governance, police brutality, and it will get to the National Assembly members and their jumbo pay. They should receive same package as civil servants or don't serve instead. National Assembly is killing us. Well, those were the tweets, and almost remarroling around what we have reacted to. But quickly, as this whole thing is building up, everybody on this panel tonight is an embodiment of experience regarding crisis, regarding peace building, regarding security. Besides the fact that there's so much concentration on Mr. President, he's the leader, we agree. And they say when something is good, the leader takes credit. When it is bad, the leader is blamed. Can we speak to the governors, the senators, House of Reps members, House of Assembly members, up to councillors, our religious leaders? Because in all this is a huge deployment. It's about talk. We have talked about the fact that we don't have any other place to go to. We have heard a complaint by the people sent in tweets. Can we sustain the appeal?
Look, this is our country. It's unfortunate that over time the country has experienced a lot of injustice, nepotism, criminality, endemic corruption, bad governance, breach of social contracts by politicians. And these are some of the things that are the background as undercurrents that are provoking and irking the youth besides NSAS protest. And these are some of the things they have also tried to push forward, and want government to look at. But sitting down here tonight, I know that we have responsible youths, without disregard for the exception to the rule, miscreants, misguided elements, criminal elements. A number of our youths will listen to significant individuals, to their parents, to leaders. If the leaders appeal to them, particularly if they appeal to their conscience, if they become empathic, they will. Quite apart from youth or young people who would set themselves on edge, using psychoactive substances or drugs, who will probably not even listen to themselves because, at that point, something is wrong with them, Quite apart from such youths, there's a lot that councillors can do. There's a lot that local government chairmen can do. There's a lot that governors can do. There's a lot that members of the, House of Assemblies in the various states can do. There's a lot that commissioners can do. There's a lot that governors can do. There's a lot that members of the National Assembly can do at a time like this. All of us coming together and talking to, first, ourselves, so if we judge ourselves, then we shall not be judged. Then we also talk to our children, then talk to members of our immediate communities and society. And I think that this thing has to be taken most seriously, because my perception of it is very frightening, to say the least. And we all need to put our hands on deck to try to tackle the problem, to try to resolve it. You see, as I sit here again, one of the things that's playing out in my heart, on my mind, is that, look, the worst wars in the world were settled around the table, It just depends on approach. The need to be empathic cannot be too emphasized. Get into the mind frame, get into the psyche of these young people. Try to understand, what's stirring them. Try to, appreciate them for what they stand for, what they are trying to express, and address and take them on some of these issues, And I believe that hopefully we'll be able to, win, the soft part of them and get them to talk to us and hopefully resolve this matter, particularly if we'll be honest about it, the way we carry on.
Okay, what lessons to those in authority after all this?
Yes, those in authority, I want to emphasize this, that this youth want their 100% attention. They want attention, they want to be relevant, they want to be co-opted in the process in trying to address these challenges that has cropped up and they've played and put on public glare. In doing that, I think these youth are looking, like I said, for solution, and they would want that to be done because they have the notion that this is going to be swept under the carpet anymore, that this is what has been happening. And so I think that the government should let the government descend law and get these boys into discussion, because one, it is to the advantage of the youth, because time, money, and life will be preserved. A lot of the things that they've cropped up here, they're saying the National Assembly take huge money. These are decay that has happened over the years. And then they find a better time now to throw that up. And in doing that, they must be given attention. The attention, according to them, is not enough. They want to be called upon, they want to be seated, they want situation, they want government to begin to talk to them. But that's true. But like I said, when you want such attention, you must ensure that you behave well. You've already sent a message, you've made your point, but if it goes beyond this, that you see people being maimed, you have the responsibility of making sure that there are no hoodlums. And because you are believing that some people have planted them, if there are people that are planted, so you sniff them out. Or tell the security with you, if you trust them, to let them out of the system. Otherwise, this thing is going to be derailed. That is what I have for them today.
Okay, the next line of question I'll direct to Jide and Kabiru, beginning with Kabiru, is listening copiously to the Minister of Youth and Sports Development. Tried a message from Mr. President. One thing he said was, Mr. President is appealing to the youths to calm down. So much program put in place, even if you listen to the 2021 budget speech delivered, it is all predicated at delivering and justifying the promise he made to Nigerian youths, taking 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. We have other programs I cannot clearly mention here, but listening to the Minister of Youth and Sports, he said this, and also regarding the image of the country. We listen to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Minister of Information, Minister of State Foreign Affairs talk about the fact that the Nigerian government stands with the social contract it owes the people of Nigeria. So like Ojakpene said, it is dialogue, dialogue, dialogue. What is your take in this direction?
The challenge with the dialogue approach is those who organized this protest, I think, deliberately stayed back. They didn't want to come out and identify themselves because they were afraid of the consequence of doing that. Perhaps they felt the measure of repression would be followed by the government. So they stayed back. How do you now dialogue with a faceless individual? Remember, I started my opening remarks by saying our intelligence capabilities failed us, that we are playing catch up. If our intelligence capabilities had identified this leadership, we would have been able to address this at a very early stage by identifying the leaders, inviting them on board, and then having the kind of dialogue with them. Now that we're where we are, and unfortunately where we are is not what anyone wants. Violence has occurred. There are groups forming, and I say this with all sense of responsibility. I'm a technocrat. My job is to analyze and mention. I'm not going to hide it. The way it is right now in certain parts of the country is that a religious and ethnic interpretation is being given the NSAS protest. And you have now one group supporting the movement, and then the other group not supporting it. And that is why in some parts of Abuja, you saw clash between the same residents of one location because of this division. And then in other parts of the north, you also saw that type of clash. Now, nobody wants this, nobody. And that means this is the time for us to take a step back on both sides. Those who organize this is the time for them to reevaluate. Is this what they had intended when they started the movement? I guess, I don't think so. I don't think that was their intention, because the very people that they are fighting for, which is the youth, unfortunately are the ones being killed, irrespective of who is, behind the violence. Whether we say it is hoodlums or the state, as is being alleged, the fact is that it is youths that are dying. And so this is the time to reevaluate and come back to the dialogue table so that at least an amicable resolution is found. And the good thing about, the government is that it's been listening. The 5 demands that were put forward, all of them more or less are being implemented, are being addressed, as the case were. So this is the time to sit down, reevaluate, and then come back to the dialogue table so that at the end of the day, we find an amicable resolution to all of this. It is our country. We have no other country to go to. And we're at a stage right now where we need to talk so that we can move the country forward.
Jimmy, let's get your reaction.
Well, my reaction will be back to the intelligence community. The intelligence community needs to redouble their efforts. I do not believe that this movement does not have leadership. I do not believe that the intelligence community do not know the leaders of this group. They are doing crowdfunding. People are supplying food. They are procuring things. They are doing banking transactions. You cannot say that you can't track all of these activities. I do not believe that there are no DSS officials at many of these protest grounds picking intelligence. Yes, the president has met with the National Security Advisor and the Chief of Defense Staff yesterday, because we are now on a new day. We do hope that the meeting going forward will show a new approach, not a repressive approach, but an approach that will build confidence, that will enable the leaders of this youth movement, this NSAS movement, to come forward to dialogue. I said it earlier, and I'm repeating myself. If government continue to bungle this and encourages the use of force on the peaceful protesters and refuses to pick up those who are attacking the peaceful protesters, there is no way the state will not be alleged to be the sponsors of this violence on the peaceful protesters. And that is what is shaping the narratives on the social media. You possibly have seen, Omini, on the different spiral videos that have gone viral of what they allege, the complicity of the state. So if cameras can pick these people who are involved in attacking the NSAS protesters, why can't the police and other security agencies pick them up, debrief them to know who sponsored them, and arrest and prosecute their masterminds? The complicity that is shaping the narratives on the social media is that the security agencies are looking the other way, while the attackers on the peaceful protesters are having a field day. Look at what happened in Apo. The millions of naira lost in 24 hours by people who never even had anything to do with this protest. You have a whole car mat raised to the ground. How do you want those people to feel? Long story short, for me, there is still hope. The president's response, when he eventually will address the nation, will determine the counter response from these NSAS protesters. If he talks to them as a father, genuinely empathetic, give them concrete assurances with timelines and deliverables, milestones clearly enunciated, and fast track all the activities that have been taken, initiated. All these 6 months to listen to 6 months for judicial services, Judicial Commission of Inquiry may not appeal to youth because they know the longer these people take, the more the issues will be swept under carpet. So you can shorten, you can have the time in which this Judicial Commission of Inquiries will sit, so that by the end of the year, some results are already, some low-hanging fruit can be gotten that will reassure the youth that government meant business and is not just embarking on rhetoric. These are the kind of assurances I personally want to see.
Thank you so much.
Like I said, arrest those who are attacking the peaceful protesters, debrief them, bring the masterminds and ROS of these attackers to justice. And that will assure the genuine peaceful protesters that it's not actually the state that is sponsoring violence against them.
Thank you, Jide Ojo. Jide Ojo, Public Affairs Analyst. He joined us via Zoom on Tuesday Live tonight. It was nice having you on the program tonight.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me, and do enjoy the rest of your day.
Okay, now back to Kabiru before I come down to the studio here. Kabiru, listening to the Minister of Information, his Twitter handle just a moment before we began this program said he sees a better Nigeria at the end of NSAS protest. In conclusion, tied to his comments, what are your comments?
Yes. Whatever happens after this movement, I believe the outcome will be beneficial for the country. If before, let's remember that just a few weeks back, we celebrated our Diamond Jubilee, and the team was togetherness. And I recall making a statement then that if we're celebrating togetherness, the next thing we should celebrate is diversity and empowerment. And this is exactly what the youth are asking for, empowerment. And I'm very happy that the cabinet minister, who is a father, a grandfather, he has realized this, and he's actually reassuring us that the outcome of all of this would be, a better Nigeria. That is what this youth wants, but they want to see credible, timelines, milestones, deliverables that would tell them this is how that better Nigeria is going to be achieved. I mentioned earlier on that we're dealing with a pool between 40 million to 70 million persons. That is not a pool you should play with. As far back as 1995, I went to a conference together with Professor Jiga in Germany, and that conference identified this pool that we're all discussing at the moment as the most credible threat to Nigeria's existence. And unfortunately, we're there now. So I'm very, very happy that, the government is taking this seriously, and we're getting assurance from a cabinet minister. And I'm hoping that that assurance is what will be contained when President Buhari eventually speaks to the youth. And in fact, not just him, the whole of government, which is, I think, the central theme in our discussion today. There should be a messaging by the whole of government, that is empathetic, that is confidence building, and at the same time that is giving hope to the youth. And then hopefully we would see an end to all of this.
Dr. Kabiru Adamu, security risk management expert. It was nice having you on Tuesday Live tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, back to Rekpene and Joshua before we wrap up the program. Now, in all this, you see the Nigerian youths, we saw one thing, the green, white, green. So despite the fact that we even have NSAS protesters, pro-SARS protesters, name it, the green, white, green flag remains, meaning the indivisibility of the country remains sacrosanct. So, in conclusion,
look, all said. All said. Look, we love this country.
One would have expected maybe with the crisis, they'll be divided. But both ways, they still had the green, white, green.
We honestly love this country. I think, and I believe the youths love the country even more. I mean, if you understand how nostalgic people who are outside this country feel about this country and want to come back, then you would appreciate how much we love this country. So, but one thing is clear: the youths have, spoken in very loud and clear language. Okay, and I believe that this NSAS protests would be etched, in the history books of this country as a watershed, for a long time. They say pressure make diamond. As it is, as it were, really right now. I think government has been stirred, and everybody who was lackadaisical, who wasn't thinking, needs to now put on. We need to now put on our thinking caps. We need to, present ourselves to be held accountable for what happened to our children. Okay. It's our responsibility. It's sad that we may have dropped the ball at some point, but it's our responsibility to pick the pieces to redeem our common, future and destiny.
Thank you, yes. Richard?
Yes, I will tell our youth that they should try as much as possible not to inject religion, ethnicity into this struggle. Also, I would like to let them know too that they should try as much as possible to get organized to such an extent that they will be able to know who is around that area and who is with them, so that on the event of new faces coming in, whoever that have injected them, they have the responsibility of fishing them out and telling the security to take them out. I think with that, and they should be very, very, very calm and committed to this, to make sure that lives and properties are not lost. That is the clarion call.
This matter has to be treated as a national emergency.
Thank you so much, Rekpene Basi, President, African Council on Narcotics. It was nice having you on Tuesday Live tonight. And also retired Deputy Inspector General of Police and legal practitioner Habila Joshua. Thanks so much for being on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, in conclusion, that's it on the program. But in the words of Stuart Stevenson, sometime ambassador of the United States to Nigeria, he said, Nigerians should always know that the indivisibility they have should be the strongest link to the unity of the country. That we should take a cue from the United States that has diverse ethnic groups. Nigeria has it. That should be our strongest point. Thanks for being on the program. Thanks for your tweets. And